Hello, everybody. My name is PrimeTime Moff, and I am joined with the fantastic Optimus Prime, or our real names of Graham and Simon, as we will slip into that through conversation. Now, we are pleased to have you along on this first episode of our new series on PrimeTime TV, where we are going to delve into the 40 years of Transformers. Each week, we will be touching on a specific year, talking through loads of different aspects of the cartoon, toys, comics, and having a good bit of fun doing it. My wallet is already scared, as I am sure going through this, there will be things I'll want to pick up. Simon, how are you feeling about it?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. I've already purchased myself the 1984 Transformers annual after our initial discussions on this and seeing it on eBay and needing it back in my life. So yes, this is going to be expensive.
I know. And I picked up a G1 Megatron yesterday, not for the for this specifically, but it just felt really good picking it up and preparation for recording, watching through some of the original Transformers episodes. So yes, I'm sure it's going to be an exciting journey, and I'm looking forward to share it with you. We'll have some special episodes, some additional episodes as well. We're going to give the movie its own year because that feels right. It feels right to kind of separate that from the year 3. But other than that, most years we'll just be sticking with a single episode for the year. So before we go into 1985, I want to quickly talk on 1984, because 1984 is probably, as much as it's not when the general public becomes aware of Transformers. Oh, I've done it wrong, haven't I?
Yeah, you said 1985 and then talking about 1984. It's okay. If you start that bit again, we can edit it.
Okay, so before talking about 1984, I want to look back onto 1983. We had a wonderful meeting with Bob Budiansky late last year, where we recorded an interview for TFUK Con, and Bob was very quick to remind us that although we are celebrating the 40th year in 1984, his 40th year of being involved was 1983, because it was late 1983 that he sat that weekend and wrote all these lovely information about each of the characters we know and love. And we know that through that year was when they really made that connection between Hasbro and Takara Tomy and getting everything involved to set us up for 1984. So let's move into 1984 then. So 1984, we are going to focus on the toys first. So the toys are a very interesting bit because every country is going to have slightly different releases, but I want to kind of just go with what we see as being the main Transformers releases for that year. And I've actually got a wee something here, or 2 different bits. When I was a kid, these were the things I absolutely loved. This is a framed version of the catalogue that shows you through what are your. It doesn't really do well with the camera, but it shows you through the Transformers we got in that year. So you've got your mini cars, you've got your cars, you've got the Autobot Commander, the wonderful Optimus Prime, you've got Soundwave and his cassettes, and you've got the planes as well as Megatron. But the one that I remember more so, and probably people in the UK will remember better, is this original one, which showcases that we didn't have Megatron at the beginning. And we've got, when we go to the Decepticons, you've got Cassette Man and his Spy Cassettes. You've got the strike planes. You've got the mini cars. You've the leader's truck, just in case you didn't know he was a truck. And then you've got the robot cars. I remember those so vividly in my mind about looking at them and going through what was the potential, what was out there. What's your first memory, Simon, of the kind of seeing the toys?
I think Argos catalogs. Argos catalogs in the early 80s. I distinctly remember looking at all the pictures in there and seeing a Sideswipe and Optimus Prime and the jets and thinking these are amazing. I need these. I think the cartoon had started airing on the Wide Awake Club before I got into the toys at all. So yeah, those are my first memories. Argos catalogs. or index catalogs as well. That's going back
Catalogs
further back.
often forgotten about. Quite often we hear people talk about the Argos catalogue, but yeah, people don't talk about the index catalogue. But yeah,
I know the index catalog was amazing.
No, it's interesting because everybody's got their own way of remembering how they got into Transformers. Mine was my first toy. I think that's why I always think toy first. I got Transformers Gears as my first toy, and I remember being like, "What is this little fella?" I didn't know anything else about it. I hadn't seen the shows, hadn't seen it was comics, and it was just more like, this is really cool. It's like, think of the Transformers now, I think of them as being fidget cubes, and I can just remember the feeling of, this is two toys in one. It's a bargain. Two toys in one. So I loved that aspect of it. So yeah, so we had the season 1 cartoon airs in 1984. That didn't have full airing in the UK. Not everybody got to see all of it. I don't really remember seeing it in the TV quite as often as I remember videotapes. Getting them from the shop. The old days where you'd walk down and get a certain videotape and kind of go over it time upon time upon time. And Arrival from Cybertron was that for me, just going through and through and rewatching as I tried to kind of understand who each of the characters were. And the cartoons back then very much, let's be honest, were toy commercials. They would do that bit of, let's introduce characters, let's go through and show you the next toy you're going to want to buy. But I think they were an incredible and important part of the franchise. And I think it's also interesting because depending on how you were introduced to the franchise, whether you were comic, cartoon, toy, independent what toy, depends on what you name certain characters. I straight away in season 1, and there's other bits throughout the franchise. In season 1, the classic Frenzy and Rumble. Who is Frenzy? Who is Rumble? For me, I only had good guys when I was a kid. Soundwave is my favourite character now. But I only had good guys as a kid, so I never had the toy of Soundwave or the cassettes. And our little village never had the comics, so I very rarely got a comic when we were out somewhere special. So for me, Frenzy and Rumble is blue, Frenzy is red. And that is obviously controversial because other people read it and go, well, actually, if you got the toys first, or if you got the comics first, you're going to have a different opinion. And it's an opinion that 40 years later still has arguments over, still has people saying, but this is right. And I think it's an interesting bit that, that one of the things I want to talk about throughout the 40 years is the moments that have challenged what is now we see as a fandom. I didn't think it's fandom back then. And I don't imagine there was people arguing back in 1984, like in school. Can't imagine school kids arguing, well, this is Friends, this is Rumble. It would just have been, maybe there was arguments. It just certainly wasn't mine. What's your thoughts on these kind of early challenges to the Transformers fandom?
I think there's a couple of things in play here that I'll touch on. First, Rumble is blue, obviously.
Good man.
One of the earlier Transformers I had was a Frenzy that I got off of a mate. Swapped it for Packet Chris was saying, yeah, it was always Rumble to me. He was blue, he was Rumble, same as in the cartoon. So yeah, but also there's a lot of I've got a whole story to tell on this in a little bit, but other transforming toys became part of the Transformers canon when you're a kid in the early 80s. Yep. The cartoon was on so rarely. I believe, I could be wrong, it was on Wackaday and the Wide Awake Club in England and was only shown in bits sort of between other segments and mostly during the school holidays. I could be wrong on that, but that's my memory of it anyway. So we didn't have like as you say, it was watching the VHS tapes until they stopped working. and obviously the comics when they arrived. But other than that, GoBots and Robo Machines were a thing at the same time. Mine and my brother's first Transformer was Turbo, the the Robo Machine, and he was bought by my mum at a shop as a Transformer for my brother as a reward for something at school or something. But for ages, he was our first Transformer that we actually owned. It wasn't until a little bit later that we got an actual Transformer. So there was that sort of side of things as well.
And I think you're right. Actually, I look just behind my laptop, and I've got two little GoBots sitting in my Transformer collection because they were a big part of the play factor. There were ones that just stuck out to me, and they were kind of monstery ones. I like those. I didn't have, as I said, I didn't have Decepticons. I didn't have a Decepticon until I was older. My brother had a Starscream. That was the only Decepticon we ever had. So I needed something to become my Decepticons. So GoBots naturally became the enemy of my Autobot, my small Autobot collection. We didn't have many of the toys. I only had a handful, but they were my Decepticons to mix and match. And I think that was the aspect of, there was other robot toys back then, as you say, in the 80s that just, kids' imagination. It doesn't have to have the Transformers brand. It just was a toy to play with to get in amongst. But yeah, so, when we think then, what else came out that year? So we talked about the toys. The first handful of comics came out. So in the UK, we know they were slightly different to the releases in the US. As I said, we had the pleasure of speaking to Bob Budiansky, chatting through that first bit of sitting writing a 4-issue limited series that was very much not just 4 issues and continued on. And there's really interesting bits in that. And it's a recording that we will share post TF UK Con. So I don't want to go too much into the comics because of that. I think that's a really good one to, we can't do it as much justice as we can when we're speaking to Bob. So we'll share that one later down the line. So let's talk about then the kind of, when we think about the cartoons. So, as I said, I remember seeing Arrival from Cybertron as I knew it. I remember first reading a bit more than meets the eye, thinking it was a whole different cartoon. I was like, I'm looking forward to seeing this. Nope, that's the same one I know. And then there's a handful of ones in the first series that jump out to me, that really struck a chord with me, and those are the episodes that had Skyfire in them. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the challenges of Skyfire / Jetfire when we come to the next week in our 1985 episode. So we're just going to stick with what we see on the cartoon at this point. At this point, we don't know there's a toy coming that relates to this character. But for me, that early aspect of having somebody who was, I am a Decepticon, but now I'm actually an Autobot, and the challenges, and I found that really interesting. I thought the size of him as well, like just a bigger posing character. Absolutely fantastic episodes. I think they are, watching the two of them, are probably my favourite of the first season. But there's just so many. I mean, there's only 16 episodes in the first season, and some absolute crackers in there. Have you got a preference for an episode from that first season?
Again, I was just thinking, Fire in the Sky was one of the ones that really stuck in my mind. Now, I'm just looking on the wiki to try and figure out whether that actually.
Let's talk through them. So you've got More Than Meets the Eye, you've got Transport to Oblivion, Roll for It, Divide and Conquer, Fire in the Sky, SOS Dinobots, Fire in the Mountain, War of the Dinobots, The Ultimate Doom, Countdown to Extinction, Plague of Insecticons, and then Heavy Metal War. I think that's the interesting. When I look through and I think about it and go, so you had a Skyfire episode, a Dinobots episode, Skyfire episode, Dinobots, and we talked, it wasn't as if this is how it was aired for us. It might have been for our American friends, this might be how it was aired in those orders. But to think that you had 2 episodes for each of those, one for Skyfire and 2 for the Dinobots to really introduce them, which later series doesn't really do that. Doesn't there's so many characters are introduced that it's throwing them on the screen almost. But to give these characters their own episodes to really embed them in in the series and the story, I think it's really impressive, and it shows how much value they saw in both Skyfire and the Dinobots.
Yeah, definitely. It is looking back at when the episodes aired compared to when the toys came out. It is almost weird to see that all of these characters were introduced so early on in the line. I think as I was saying with the Skyfire thing, I think my brain just thought that they were later episodes. I didn't twig that they were quite such early ones, especially with Plague of Insecticons. Because again, it's an episode where Plague of Insecticons, I really remember. I vividly remember seeing that episode split into 3 parts on blooming Wackaday or whatever it was. Timmy Mallet introducing it. It's weird to think that those toys, we hadn't seen them, didn't know about them or anything else at that point. They were all complete mysteries. But again, our memories might be a little bit fuzzy. It's entirely possible we didn't get these episodes until 85, possibly even 86, when things had all sort of got a bit more big. But yeah.
And I think even at that, like, I think back, and for the longest time, before the episodes were available on DVD and you could just go and get them and catch them, I was sure there was an episode with the Insecticons. So I always went looking for it, thinking that this must be an episode. And actually it was from the advert, and it was the and it's a plague of Insecticons, and they are kind of in a kind of cornfield. And I was like, that's an episode. What episode's that in? And I remember the first time I wasn't even streaming, it was downloading at a very, 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 very slow pace, quick time movies of these episodes to go and watch. And it was a joy to have new G1 at a point in the 90s where, you know, I was just like, this is great to be able to go back and go into it. But yeah, I think that's the bit that you know, the Transformers are 40. Also means we're a bit, you know, and that kind of 40 bit. So how is it, you know, memories for exactly when these came out. And I said, you know, as we said, we're going to focus on when they were released rather than maybe when we saw them or when they got a UK release. And, you know, certainly we got a lot of the UK got a lot of the releases before the rest of Europe. So actually there's some stuff that we got in 1984 that's actually 1985 if you go into Europe. So it is easy to kind of just go, well, actually, let's just go with the 1984. As I say, Megatron, for example, wasn't part of the 1984 wave for us, but it was for the Americans. So it's kind of...
Let's just quickly go over the figures that came out in 84 over here compared to the States. Right, I'm just making sure I'm on the right page. Okay, so in America, you had the mini cars: Brawn, Bumblebee, Bumper, Cliff Jumper, Gears, Huffer, Windcharger. The Autobot cars of Blue Streak Hound, Ironhide, Jazz, Mirage, Prowl, Ratchet, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, Trailbreaker, Wheeljack. Autobot Commander Optimus Prime. 3 chronoforms, those must be the watches, I guess. Autoceptor, Deceptor, and Kaltor. And then the Decepticons, you had the Cassettes, Frenzy, Laserbeak, Rumble, who was red, Ravage, the Decepticon planes of Skywarp, Starscream, and Thundercracker. Then you had communications with Soundwave and Buzzsaw, and Decepticon leader Megatron. And then you had the Power Dashers, the Omnibots, and Time Warrior for the mail away promotion. So there's I didn't count, but a ton of figures came out in the first wave in America.
If I'm right, I'll just make sure. Well, I could be wrong, but I believe we didn't get Megatron. We didn't get Wheeljack originally. I'm trying to remember who else. I'm kind of sure. I don't think we get Trailbreaker at the very beginning, or I know they came out quite quickly afterwards.
I'll go through the list. So wait, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mini cars in America. We only got 6, but the only one we didn't get was Bumper. So that was fine. We got the same Spy Cassettes pack, although we were called Spy Cassettes. The robot cars, the Autobot cars, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in America, and we got 6. Blue Streak, Hound, Jazz, Mirage, Ratchet, and Sideswipe. So we didn't get Ironhide, didn't even get Prowl. Didn't get Prowl.
What did we miss? Prowl, Ironhide, Trailbreaker, and
Wheeljack. Must be more than that as well. Wow, that's bonkers.
Crazy.
Cassette Man, Soundwave with Buzzsaw. The Strike Planes, the Skywarp, Starscream, and Thundercracker. And
I always liked the name Strike Planes. I always thought the name Strike Planes was good. When they just call them the Decepticon planes, I think you're missing a trick. Strike Planes is quite a, you can see them as being an attack squadron. And I think even with the UK release, where the Autobots outnumber the Decepticons, and I think throughout the as we go through this 40 years, I think we find that continually. I sit in my room and I fare the Decepticons over the Autobots. But I've got a lot more Autobots that have got Decepticons, and that's, I think that's just par for the course. I think it sets a stall for the very beginning. Certainly in the 80s, generally, good guys had more than the bad guys. As I say, my parents only really bought me good guy stuff. I never had any of the bad guys. It wasn't until a car boot sale I got my first Decepticon, and then I think that's probably why I gravitate to them more, and I want to pick up more Decepticons, because I'm like, I never had them as a kid.
See, one thing I always found slightly, it's been somewhat corrected over time. Well, not corrected, but changed over time. But with most of the toy lines and most of the sort of franchises that we remember from our youth, the bad guys would be a few characters and then a mass of nameless, faceless soldiers to fill out their ranks. That could be cannon fodder for the small group of hero good guys. And Transformers didn't do that, at least not early on.
Other than Decepticons, really.
But, yeah. But not en masse.
Right.
You didn't have stormtroopers. You didn't have
Thundercats and
Cobra Troopers. Yeah. You didn't have any of that. It was just the characters. So the fact that even in the UK line, you had 13 good guy Transformers come out originally, and 6, 7, 8, 9 Decepticons, of which 5 are cassettes.
It's crazy.
It is bonkers, but yeah, I think that's...
What I also like about the first year, obviously we know that the toy line came out of Diaclone and Microchange. Diaclone being that kind of more the cars and the realistic things, not realistic things, the cars and the planes and more realistic alt modes, whereas the Microchange was more the your gun, your real life things, your gun, your tape player. The bit that I only in the last few years cottoned on to and was blown away with was the mini cars were not Diaclone, they were more Microchange, because they were of your, I can't remember the name of it. They were essentially toy cars rather than being cars. And it's such a slight penny cars, is that right? Like penny cars,
they're
like that. And that blew me away, because actually when you then look at it and you look at the proportions, you're like, of course they are. And the when you look at the Sunstreaker or Sideswipe, for example, because I love a Lamborghini Countach, both beautiful alt modes. Even at that point, the alt modes of the toys, especially those Diaclones, those look like that's a truck, that's a car, that's a plane. They look stunning. Soundwave, how many people were getting fooled by a Soundwave? That looked like a tape player. Like, yes, it was a bit smaller because we'd expect the tape to be a bit bigger, but it looked like one. The gun, it was on the American list of things that can't be taken on a plane for so long, because it looks like a freaking gun. Like, it's so impressive. I was showing the boys my new G1 Megatron yesterday, and it was like, this is incredible. Actually, it holds up so well and still looks brilliant. But these mini bots, actually, that it was such a revelation and such a, oh, well, of course it's not a real car. It's going to have the real proportions of a car. It's a toy car, and it's just a genius bit. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to through these weeks and the rest of this year going through this, is the amount of things that I have learned about Transformers as an adult that blows me away. You know, I've got ones from just the last few weeks, examples that I'm looking forward to sharing of things I didn't know, and somebody who knows more than me has shared it, and I've been blown away. So I think that'll be the fun bit of going through these 40 years.
Oh, definitely.
There'll be some crazy new things we're potentially learning as we're researching into the preparation for these episodes. And it's just good fun to just even talk that through of what's each of our experiences of these years as we go through it. So 1984, it's an absolute stellar year. You know, when I first started collecting Masterpiece, all I wanted was a masterpiece of everything that was on this. You know, I was like, I want a masterpiece of everything. That's all I need. Just hope my wife doesn't hear me saying that, because that's certainly not where I stopped. And it continues because I continually upgrade, you know, with, for example, Fans Toys version of Gears. And it'll never end. I always enjoy the upgrades and changes and new bits. There's always new toys to get, and it'll be good fun going through this and finding some old toys that we both maybe go, oh, okay, that's a TFN purchase. We need to put that on the list, and just get more expensive. Any last thoughts on the 1984?
Well, I mean, we need to talk about toys a little bit in terms of got your Gears. So I would be remiss without mentioning this guy.
Gatron.
Yeah, indeed. This is Truck. What was it called? Truck Man. Leader Truck Optimus Prime. This isn't my original one. This is one I actually only bought last year because I didn't, weirdly, in my collection have an actual G1 Optimus Prime. I've got several reissues and whatever else, but this one's...
There's my G1 Optimus Prime that has seen better days. Slightly broken smokestack. They don't set up right.
So quick.
It's still G1.
So my first Transformer wasn't actually Optimus Prime. It was Blue Streak, and I got him at, I think it was Index, not Argos. I always say Argos, and you know, we had the car robots in there, and we picked one. I was hoping upon hope that the random one that came out from the back was going to be Sideswipe, because you know, he's a red Lamborghini, it looked awesome, and it was unfortunately Blue Streak, which I then grew to love immensely, and I have many different versions of Blue Streak in all of his different guises, but unfortunately they're in a box sort of tucked away under my pile of shame. I'll try and get them out for another episode. But Optimus Prime I didn't get immediately. I asked for him for the Christmas. I'm assuming it was Christmas of '84. A few of my friends managed to get him, and that was great for them. And my parents, bless them, they did try and get him, but they couldn't. So I instead ended up with an orange GoBot. I forget his name, Stax, I think. It was an orange GoBot tractor.
Was it a pickup truck?
He was a big orange truck, long nose truck with a blue car carrier on the back, and he was my stand-in Optimus Prime. As I said, playing with the adding characters in who aren't necessarily part of canon or a different line entirely. But he was my Optimus Prime for several years, and the best thing about that was that the following Christmas, my parents bought my brother Optimus Prime, which actually has led me to where I am now, because
you've never forgiven them.
Never forgave my parents, and have been after that joy of having my own Optimus Prime, which has led to this. Yes, we'll go on to Power Master Optimus Prime later, but that was my first actual Optimus Prime. But yeah, he's just a man.
Beautiful.
I mean, the truck mode is just glorious. It's just striking colors. moves so well. The transformation's great. I was convinced that the hands came out of his arms, and I couldn't understand when my friends finally showed me theirs that was what happened. Anyway, moving on.
I don't know if does Optimus Prime have hands. Okay, I don't. I think my hands were lost like incredibly quickly. I don't remember keeping them for a long time. Same as my wee brothers. Starscream did not keep its hands very long. But yeah, so Optimus Prime's a special one. You know, we talked about you're going to give us your Optimus Prime of the year. It's only ever going to be one for 1984, probably 1985.
Yeah,
probably 1986. It's the early years are.
Power Master Prime. I mean, I could do Pepsi Prime, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, so my pick of the year was always going to be Gears. Like, he's not the best Transformer, but he's the most pivotal Transformer for me because that's what started it. So Gears will always have that special place. I always say this and then go, there'll be something random I don't know of. I have every Gears official and unofficial release there's ever been. There'll be some random thing, like not these the kind of Mexican colours and stuff. I do have a KO one as well, but the third party and official stuff, I've got them all because he's an easy enough character to collect. Not like your challenge of Optimus Prime or even my challenge with Soundwave. Gears is quite an easy one to kind of pick up. So I'm looking forward to the new release of that. And it did a miss. I don't know if you can see how much you can see it. My favourite Optimus Prime is still that original Optimus Prime. I'm going to tell you a quick story about Optimus Prime and my why he is so awesome up there. So March 2020, before COVID, I had just turned 40, was taking my boy to Wales Comic Con to go and meet Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, with the knowledge that, of course, later in that year, we had TFN, where we were also going to meet Peter Cullen, and it was going to be incredible and a wonderful experience. So I had a reissue Optimus Prime that I was going to hold off to TFN and get signed in a more personal environment, and it would be an absolutely incredible experience. So the Friday morning before leaving to go to ready to go to Wales Con, I looked at the reissue Optimus Prime and went, I wonder if this COVID thing is as bad as they think. Should I take this fella with me and just get it signed now? No, it'll be fine. That regret sat with me for 2.5 years, and that figure almost mocked me for that decision. Every time I looked at it, I went, oh, and they're not young guys. They are not, it could have easily been the only chance I ever got to meet them, and it would have lived with regret. I had got my Soundwave signed because as much as he's Megatron Welker, Soundwave's my guy. So I'd got a Soundwave signed. That was my priority with him. So I had fine with him. And then thankfully, October 22, the Glasgow, no, it wasn't. It was Edinburgh Comic Con. Frank Welker and Peter Cullen were there. And I had just joined PrimeTime Toys, and I got Optimus Prime. I told them my story, told them the challenge of the 2.5 years to get this signature, and how I was actually quite emotional about it. I'll be honest, I started to choke up, and you could see him being really reflective of that. And then I told him the fact that I just joined PrimeTime Toys and that it was his name was so pivotal in my life. And he actually wrote on the trailer, "It's PrimeTime" from Peter Cullen. So that figure is incredibly special. And as much as I'm not really an Optimus Prime guy, you can't be a Transformers, in my opinion, you can't be a Transformers fan without being an Optimus Prime guy and without being a Megatron guy, because they're the linchpins of the whole show. But that's my story of my Optimus Prime. It's not an official original one, but it's damn close to it, and it's an incredible one. And certainly as we go through this, I'm looking forward to hearing your stories of some of the Optimus Primes, because there's some that I don't have. I've got a small Optimus Prime collection, some really nice ones in there. Power Master Prime.
I've only got a few.
So I'm looking forward to that, and I think that's the bit that I'm looking forward to the most is when we start to talk about how these characters are developed and how we've got different versions of them and the gimmicks that have came across the years and the things we enjoyed. It'll be incredible. And actually then we'll talk at the end of this year, our final episode of the year, we'll be talking through and reflecting on this year. which will be an incredible year. We've got some exciting things we know about. We've got the Missing Link Optimus Prime, 2 versions of. I expect we'll have more Missing Link. We have already had the 40th anniversary versions of Soundwave and Blaster, and more exciting things to come this year. So this is going to be an incredible journey. We're so grateful to have you along. Please give any comments, any feedback, send us a message. We are looking forward to going through this incredible journey with you, and we are excited about the idea of exploring a franchise that means so much to both of us, and really going into details. You know, Simon's knowledge for Optimus Prime is incredible. Simon's experience of Transformers, you know, there'll be stuff that we're going to learn. It's going to be brilliant. So thank you very much for joining us this episode. Simon, any last words from yourself?
No, not at this point. Thank you for having me, and sharing this whole thing with me. This is going to be really good fun. I'm really looking forward to the other years.
Yeah, and the one point to make is each week we will alternate who's hosting. So next week Simon is going to be in charge of hosting. He's doing the homework. He's prepping for 1985. I'm looking forward to it. I very quickly, when we sat and did the rundown, I realised that I'd made a mistake, and you get the absolute pleasure of hosting the Transformers the movie one. But I think that's one that we'll both incredibly enjoy. I've not looked to see who's getting some of the stinker years, the years that nobody wants. But I think that the first few years will be incredibly exciting to go
Who's
through.
Getting Machine Wars?
Who's getting Machine Wars? Machine Wars is one. Just where my head. I've got the Machine Wars Soundwave repaint of the Fans Hobby. So Machine Wars is one that I wasn't excited about, but now I kind of, having listened to Andy Cousins talk about some of those molds, Machine Wars is something I would quite like to try and pick up some pieces of. Certainly the Soundwave has kind of always been there anyway. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and we look forward to seeing you again next week as we talk about 1985. Till then, thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.